All right. Hey, kids. We're here with the fantastic Jenny Pentland. I'm so excited that you came to join us. It's been like a decade, I think, since I've talked to you last, since your brother was doing his little radio show with us. Such a fun time. It was crazy. So I was so excited to read your book because, working with your brother, I kind of got to know a little bit about your family and what things were like. And then reading your story. There was a lot of emotions it brought up for me. I struggled with weight as a kid. I have a definite complex relationship with my mother. So there was a lot of things I could relate to. And it was quite the journey that you take people on with this book.
Thanks.
I kind of wonder, what was the motivation for writing it now?
Processing trauma.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the motivation. I think when I was going through everything, I just kind of compartmentalized it and put it away and was like, oh, later I'll write about this and it'll be funny in hindsight how ridiculous everything is. And that's where the title comes from. This will be funny later was because, every time I experience something traumatic or difficult or funny or anything, I would just say, I'll write about this later and compartmentalize that story and stick it in the banks and process it later, really, is what I was doing. Because things moved so fast and got so crazy so fast that I had to do it that way.
Yeah. And here's the title of the book and what it looks like. And it's available everywhere. This will be funny later, a memoir. And that was true when starting reading it. I was like, your life was like everybody else's until it wasn't.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was normal for a good 7 years, right?
Yeah, it was about 7 years. Yeah. The important year, the formative years. That's probably why I'm not totally insane.
So you
So,
later on in the book, you referred to the whole your version of immersion therapy, and that's how I felt when I got to the end of the book was like, and that was going to be my question for you is that was this you taking your own trauma and processing and taking therapy kind of in your own hands and doing your immersion therapy because you're a writer, you're a great writer, and this was a way of like
yeah.
processing all of that.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
totally part of the actually in the book where I talk about where everything kind of culminated in like a big old fat nervous breakdown when
Right.
maybe like 6 or 7 years ago or a little longer. Um, Part of my exposure therapy, immersion therapy, whatever they call it, after I like had, I live on an island with very few resources, so I don't
Mm,
suggest anybody do this. It was just what I had
yeah.
as a survivor to continue to survive was to try to kind of handle some things myself. So I did have like a pact with myself that if I was afraid of anything, if anything came up in my life that I was afraid of, whether it be going to Costco, calling the bank to check my balance, or writing a book, I was going to do it and just say yes to anything. And I think it was like 3 days later that my friend reached out and said, "Are you ready to write that book you've been talking about?" And I had to say yes, just because the fear, I was shivering, like my jaw was shivering so badly when she said it. I couldn't like talk, and like I had to actually hold my jaw still for the conversation with her. And so that's why that was my original motivation for the timing and everything was because I had set that goal for myself to not let fear control me in any way, and it just so happened at that exact moment. So
So was it a cathartic writing process for you? Like, did you find like once you opened the floodgates that things really just started to like go?
yeah, so they told me to write 70,000 words, and I wrote over 100,000 words,
Wow.
and I had to cut a lot of it out. But yeah, it definitely flowed because I'd been holding it for so long. Like I'd been mulling those
Yeah.
stories around in my head for so long, and then when I finally forced myself to take space for myself as a mom with a bunch of kids, um, and really set up like a room or a space. I mean, the space kept changing. Sometimes it was my car, sometimes it was a
Right.
bathroom, sometimes it was an office, park, Starbucks, parked outside Starbucks. I mean, it was really everywhere, and things changed like week to week as what was available. But just having the knowing that I had to spend like 4 to 5 hours a day working on it was it was the first time I'd ever done anything disciplined like that in any way. So Yeah, just I knew I had a time limit too. I knew like my kids got out of school at a certain hour and I would have to go get them. And so all that pressure I kind of that used to make me buckle. It felt good and it helped me like kind of stay on that path to writing it. It was super cathartic. Um, and it also like because I have PTSD and I was kind of trying to deal with it on my own, it also sort of opened a Pandora's
Yeah.
box, and the last few years have been really difficult. And especially like the last year, I also got pregnant with a fifth
Right.
son while I was writing it, and COVID. My husband lost a job. I think the very last, like the tag at the end of the book, I talked a lot about what was going on during.
Yeah, the baby
Yeah.
in one hand and the
Yeah.
I
By
did.
yourself.
Exactly. Like, oh man, she's
Well, he
doing
goes
it
back
all.
to school somewhere else.
Yeah.
Did you save the extra 40,000 words for a sequel? Because I haven't had enough of your writing and your story.
Oh, thanks.
Me too.
I could. It would probably be a little bit weirder. I cut out all the weird stuff.
That's fine.
We're up for that.
Yeah, seriously.
It's pretty weird. It's like George Norrie weird. So we'll
Jenny,
see.
I don't, and honestly, I gotta say, reading this book, like to me, I felt like this would have been the show I think that America's now ready for, right? Like you talked about in the book that this show that was on the air, Roseanne, had this kind of alternate parallel universe of this PG version of what really was your family. And to me, this behind the scenes look into your perception of what was going on in your family, right? Because it's your take in the
Yeah.
book. To me, like this is a more interesting show. Like this could really be turned into a great miniseries, or
Maybe I'm
the
working
next.
on that.
That would be
Ooh, we
fantastic.
hope
Like that's
so.
my hope for you is to see that come true, because I think it would be a great television show.
That was where I was always going with it. Actually, that was my first original idea, and I talked to somebody about it, and they were like, "No, nobody's going to care about you until you have like a name for yourself or have done something." And that was another motivation for
Get the book out.
writing the book too, because that's always been my end game in my head, which I seem to follow a lot of my mother and a lot of my mom's footsteps, but not intentionally in any way. It's
Right.
just kind of a weird karmic thing, but I've just always felt like this is far more interesting. There was actually a reality show like 10 years ago that they wanted to do about. I moved to Hawaii to manage my mom's macadamia nut farm that she had out there about 12 years ago. And it was hilarious because it was me, my husband, our 4 kids. We had no idea how to do anything. And we like taught ourselves all of it. And it was hilarious. And then they did a reality show called Roseanne's Nuts where they faked like
Oh,
literally
right.
every interaction and like made up some weird thing where we were trying to get the nuts packaged or something. I don't know, but they missed all of the good real content that was right there. And I just really wanted to tell the real story. It's way funnier. It's always way funnier than the what's the word, like the one they try to dream up, like is never as funny as reality.
For sure.
I think you were always funny, even when you gave your dolls polio and various diseases and ailments. And
I should have been a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor.
And that too, like I think that was so interesting in the book, like how you were so young and you went to LA for the summer and you were only able to bring a certain thing and you were fighting with your sister and you brought your fake Cabbage Patch Goldie with you.
Yep, I sure did.
And like that, those little things and how you were so attached and how you always wanted to be with your family. I was reading it and I'm like, this parallel universe of like, like we're kindred because we were the overweight kids, like in this complex relationship with our mothers, but you wanted to be with your family. And I'm like, I wanted to get the hell out of there. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I'm going to my aunt's house. I don't want to be anywhere near mine. So it was so interesting that you craved to be with them.
I have Stockholm syndrome. I'm just kidding.
Sorry,
I'm just kidding. Joking.
No, but I think across the. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh no, it's funny that you brought up that example because Jenny, you and I are the same age. So in the beginning of the book, before you really get into more of the trauma and some of the things that happened, it was, oh, and I listened on Audible. I have a long commute, so I like had your voice in my head all week, which has been weird and cool. So as you're describing that, like, what was my childhood as far as like the aesthetics and what the landscape looked like, the outfits, the whole
Yeah.
9 yards. But the other thing too is that around the same age in my life, my parents went through a divorce, and we moved into this small dingy apartment, and I really didn't have toys or anything. And the thing that I held on to was an Aunt Jemima maple syrup bottle, and I thought she was real, and I was telling everybody. I was so proud of her. Like, and I'm telling everybody about this maple syrup, and I'm like using her. And so as you're relaying this story, I'm like, oh, I know that moment. And then, and the really weird thing is, because you had Max, right? Max was the older guy, the in the neighborhood who would like bring you gifts and
Yeah.
stop in and hey Dimples. So I don't remember in my childhood, but I think there was another kid there, but maybe not. So it's just interesting how your mind kind of, when you have to go back in time to those pivotal
Yeah.
moments and like what you held on to. So for me, it was Aunt Jemima, the maple syrup bottle. I don't know.
Which is hilarious, and I totally understand. I was obsessed with that bottle. Whenever it was like, my grandma had it. I ever got the like cheap plastic version, but my
Yes,
grandma had
yes.
the real one, and
It's
I would
like-
just sit there and stare at it. But she used to make dolls out of like shampoo bottles and all that weird stuff they used to do, like the toilet paper, like ball gowns and all of that kind of like weird stuff people did when, I don't know what we were doing back then. It was
But
so
yours
ridiculous.
did yours
Well,
talk? Because mine talked. I know it did. Like we had conversations. I know I had conversations with
That
it.
explains a lot.
I know.
Could have.
I'm just saying. So I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but
No, I was insane in totally different ways.
I need to know who named Papa Woody.
It just happened organically, and it was really unfortunate. And I don't think anybody stopped us. And I don't
Did anybody
know, like,
realize at the time that Papa Woody meant a little more than just Papa, who is named Woody?
I don't think so, because his name was always Woody. His wife and his wife and brothers and siblings and friends all called him Woody. So it was just like, because like Woody's Toy Story, it's fairly innocent until you put Papa in front of it. But I think my sister was the first grandkid, and I don't remember her really ever. I think I might have invented it. Maybe I could only say Papa. I think it just happened like organically and unfortunately.
I think it's beautiful.
I think these are the things about this book that you are so relatable, and even though the things that happen and the fame that comes to your mother, it's still so grounded, and it's so relatable. You know what I mean? That anybody that picks up this book, there's all these pieces that, oh, I see myself in this. I know this person. Where there's so many people that you would say, oh, that's a celebrity's kid. This is, that you don't have that with. Like you talk about the first slumber party you went to and how upset you were, and you were worried because you were a bedwetter, and the girl's cousin was there, and there was something, maybe she was a little slow, and that they were so mean to her, and it bothered you. And like I started getting choked up reading about it, how you went and sat with her and left the slumber party, and then they turned around and they were nothing but rotted bitches to you.
They mean girled you and basically kicked you out of the cool club.
Yeah, they totally did. It was horrible. And it's like, the worst part is like how, because I'm a really, really sensitive person, like really ridiculously sensitive. And even physically sensitive too. So I still remember the smell of like the paper and the spit. Like it's stuck in my brain for the rest of my life. I think it's very unfair. Because it's like mean girled me to all the way till I die. It's always in there.
Yeah.
It's gonna always be there. It's not fair.
You just brought up one of the things I wanted to ask about. I mean, it's clear you're empathic. I mean, through the whole book and the way there were so many points in the book where, again, I identified with that, where obviously no one could have lived the life that you did. But as Jeffrey said, it's relatable in so many ways. And I'm wondering how that empathic side of you has been affected by this journey. And when you look at your boys, you know, have any of them, has that been passed down to them? Because I think we went into depth in one chapter about, you know, on the Pentland side, you knew you had, what did you say? You had gods on one side, and when you were talking about the bars and the Pentlands, like, oh, I should have written that down. It was like you had gods on one side and like kings and
Oh yeah.
royalty or
Oh yeah,
kings
we
and
had
king-
royalty on one side, and then we had like psychic healers on the other.
yes
Yeah.
yes
So the Kohanim were on my mom's side. That sounds, you know, it's pretty accurate for now too. Like we have I think a lot of empaths tend to kind of lean toward the psychic side.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of psychic phenomena is just empathy, and people just don't know how to
Right.
read it. And when you're really, really sensitive, it really becomes the same thing in a lot of ways. And because of the empathy part of me and the, you know, the sensitivity, I think it was always really, really important for me to have like human connection. Like that's what grounds me, makes me feel like I'm gonna be okay in some way. Like like big crowds and stuff freak me out a lot of times because I'm not having those uh more human interactions on a one-on-one basis. And I think that that's probably why the book feels relatable, because I had to find a way to be relatable to other people while I was going through that. I knew that our situation was weird. I knew nobody else's mom was on TV, but I was so desperate for that like human connection that I was like, but wait, you know, I'm fat, or like whatever I would throw out there that I could relate to other people.
Oh God, that's so bad.
Well, but we've all
it's
been
true.
there. We can relate to that.
Yes.
Yeah, or just like any of the things that I was going through at the time. Like I wanted the focus off of You're Roseanne's Daughter because I needed the human connection, and I needed people to see me, and I needed to be seen. And so I would overshare. I still do it, obviously, but like you know, just that kind of, I think that's what ends up making me relatable on accident is my desperation to relate to everybody on earth.
Well, and how you do it with such great humor.
Thank you.
Yeah, the book was hysterical as well.
Hysterical.
I mean, there were so many moving, the journey. Yeah. I'm sorry, Katrina, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I would just want to hear about your nanny that you had that was telling you about her PCP use and how you guys threatened to tell on her illicit drug use in exchange for her silence if she gave you guys sauerkraut.
Yes.
Please tell me how on earth
Sauerkraut.
anything you chose sauerkraut as
because
your
I think I had been on crash diet, and now we know in the 2000s and 20s how important probiotics are for your mental and physical health and your bellies and all of it. And I think like I had been on the right side for so long that I like didn't have a single probiotic. I just spit on my phone and said, I just think that I had murdered every single positive bacteria in my body, and I really, really wanted some probiotic. Your body will crave the things you need.
Yeah.
I
okay, but how did you convince your siblings that they also wanted sauerkraut?
I think they also were starving to death and had whatever form of scurvy I had. I think they were into it too. I think they had the same, like not Jessica so much because she was getting her probiotics sharing cigarettes with people in the street. But me and Jake, like, yeah, I really wanted sauerkraut. I think that's why. Because like
you were a visionary.
Yeah, your life could have gone in a completely different direction if you had launched that idea 20 years ago. Like,
see, intuitively, these empaths, they know.
Like gut biome is going to be a thing, and not washing your babies after birth is going to be so important. And let me just tell you about the future. Oh my gosh, that was awesome.
I found it incredibly hard to believe, but amazing that you had your parents padlock the fridge because you were on another crash course crazy diet.
God, yeah, this is
what
insane.
was that like?
Insane.
I'm a girl who likes a challenge. I ate myself right past that fridge lock. I
That
stuck
part
my
was
hand in there and
insane. Yeah.
Yes.
A full
You,
strategy,
the
like a criminal
acrobats
mastermind.
I wish
in
you
this
could have
book.
seen it.
Oh, you could
I
see
wish you
it.
could have seen it.
The
Oh, I
way
Oh
could
that
no,
see
you
it's
it.
all
I
in
paint
my
could
the
see
head.
it.
I
yeah,
see it.
you paint the picture in this book of how you got past the lock on the fridge,
You
got your arm in,
sneak
and
it
how you
in,
learned you
Yup.
had to like
going
And
in.
then you twist.
you had to clean your hand off, and
Yeah,
then
with the
you
other
figured you
hand.
had to clean the lid. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, because it was Laura
Jenny.
Scudder's. That was the only peanut butter we were allowed in the house was that natural peanut butter.
Oh,
And you had to like,
They shouldn't have even locked it up.
no, nobody even wants that. But it was
When-
like the only thing I could get at. It was, you know,
even your description of the peanut butter, like I remember the first time we bought natural peanut butter, or some
Yeah.
terrible human
Ugh.
bought it, and your description, I almost drove off the road on my way to work because I'm like, yes, that is. I remember that jar, and you're like, what do you do with this? The top's all oily and disgusting.
Like the
The
whipped
oil
peanut
and the
butter.
cement.
dripping oil. Ugh.
Yes. Ugh. God.
Well, what you do with it is you take a shower after you dip your arm in it.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
have
do.
to. You smell like peanuts. No, you have to take a shower after that oil gets on you. There's no way, like, you can't just give yourself an arm bath or any of that. Somehow it
I
gets
ju-
all over everything.
I just think now as a parent, I mean, first of all, I'd be in prison though if I padlocked the fridge. But I just think that if my kid went to the lengths that you did to get to the peanut butter in the refrigerator,
They
that
do.
I'd go and buy them a cake. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right? Yeah.
I would be so impressed that what you did, what you went through. Like, how could you not laugh? You know what I mean? I just pictured your parents like in the bedroom, losing their mind, smoking their weed that they had in the garbage bag or whatever it was in the closet, like being like, "Can you imagine her? Like she was getting the peanut butter out of the fridge." Like, just,
And
I
she
mean,
thinks
how
we
could
don't
you
know.
not? Yeah.
And it
I
was
think-
just peanut butter.
I mean, no matter what it was, I was going to get it. It could have been frosting and it could have been it could have really been anything except for like rice, minute rice. Cause I think like I say in there too, we were on the rice diet during the time when that happened. So you were supposed to eat rice for breakfast, rice for lunch,
Right.
and like a grapefruit
Ugh.
for breakfast. And then for dinner, like a sensible 4-ounce fillet of chicken with nothing on it.
Oh, so Kat, you brought up the peanut butter. The
Mhm.
other kind of like theme throughout the book is like you are the master of crime scene cleanup. I mean, really, like again and again, you're like, so folks,
Yeah.
if you're ever in this situation where you're trying to smoke an illegal cigarette in reform school bathroom,
Yes.
and
That was crazy.
Yeah.
and then what was the finishing touch? And then you wipe the walls down with toothpaste to get the mint. Yeah, to get the mint smell.
Yeah.
And I'm dying. I'm like, God, where were you in my life? Like I
It was
should have.
genius.
Okay,
Some of
this-
that was handed down knowledge though from
Sure.
people who were already in there.
In the
'Cause
system.
yeah, there was it was very much like when I watch prison movies and there's always somebody who's like, I've been in here forever and this is what we do. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you add like a new little twist like, hey, what if we put toothpaste on the walls? And it works. It totally worked. We didn't get caught. I mean, they would always be like, is somebody smoking in here? Like there was always, and then you'd just be like, no, prove it. But we had the unit above us and they were adults and they were allowed to smoke. So we'd be like,
Oh,
somebody open a vent
it's
up
coming
there.
down.
Must have been them.
Plausible deniability.
And then you talking about what you would do, how you'd get the guy from across the way to get you.
my god.
You
it
the
was so
whatever her
good.
name was that was there for like a week. She'd flash the guy to get you cigarettes, and he'd put him through the vent. I mean, and again, like the stories, the pictures that were painted. There was one part in the book where I was laughing out loud so hard that the kids were like, "What's so funny? What's so funny?" And I couldn't tell them because you were talking about how there was some kid that was in there that you was your friend and how you had to keep the nurse busy for him.
Oh my god.
And how-
I
And
loved
I'm
it.
like, and I'm texting them, and I'm like, "Oh my god, wait till you get to this part, right?" And I'm texting because there was like
that's
six
what
of
made
us.
me,
that
that's what made me buy the book. Him
I
telling
got.
me
I
this
had
story.
everybody that's not like. 'Cause there's a bunch of different shows on the channel. I'm like, you guys have got to read this. You're on the second floor out the window, and I'm like, I got the nurse busy for him because that's what you do when you're in these places. You got to look
Yeah.
out for each other. And I'm watching from the second
Cheering
window,
him
rooting him
on,
on,
cheering him
go,
on.
go, go. And there he goes, gets 3 feet out and he gets tackled to the ground. He didn't make it far, but I did my part.
I did my part.
The way, and I'm doing no justice to how she wrote this line and how she wrote this. None whatsoever. What I tell you guys, I was in tears, hysterical. Like how, I mean, he just got tackled to the ground. Like what? You just cheering him on from the second.
Yeah, I was like, run. And that same vent that you would open to get the cigarettes pulled through, you have to stand on the bottom windowsill because these were huge windows, but they were black, like the double whatever, people couldn't see in because you couldn't have curtains or you'd hang yourself. So that was it. But it had like a ledge at the bottom, so you could stand on the ledge and like stick your face up enough so that you could kind of screen through the top vent, which was like this sort of U-shaped vent that went down. And I was just screaming, run, because I could see from up above that they were coming to get him. And he knew they were chasing him, but I just was like, you know, you just want to be like, give him that little extra encouragement somebody might need when they're running from people like that. But no, they slammed him on the pavement. They slammed him down, and I was like, oh. And turns out he had like a screwdriver in his pocket or something. So like they really like did full on police style like restraints on him in front of me. It was pretty brutal. It was awful because I loved that guy, and he was like frail. He actually, now that I think about it, looked exactly like my 14-year-old.
Oh God.
But
now, have you heard, like, have any of these people like maybe read the book and like been like, hey Jenny, that was me. I was there. I was the guy that tried to run away.
I hope that they do. I had to change everybody's name, so I hope that when people read it, that they don't write it like go search for their name and don't see it. I hope they read it and try to figure out who they might have been in there if I had to change a name. But I'd love to hear from him again. I don't remember what I called him in the book, but I remember his real name. And that was like most people. There's been a couple people. I've been friends with a lot of the people that I was in there with online for a long time because of Facebook, but there was a couple people recently who wrote me and said that they remembered me from different places, but I didn't really remember them too much or have any details about, like, there was a lot that I did black out too, you know. It was like crazy 24/7 all the time. So like I just remembered the sort of pivotal or really ridiculous or really painful or really funny things.
At one moment in the book that really kind of hit me pretty hard was your birthday. We actually just did a show about like how birthdays and what they trigger for us in trauma. And for one of your birthdays, they were taking you out to dinner. You were excited because you were going to eat as much as you wanted, and your parents got into it. Yeah, and you were going to eat the damn cake, and she popped them in the chops in the car, and you didn't get to go to the damn restaurant.
Nope, I didn't get to go to the damn restaurant.
And I was horrified for you. Like, what? How did that? Like, how was your birthdays affected for that after that? How were they affected from that?
I know what you're saying. I hate all holidays. I hate Christmas. I hate Hanukkah. Yeah. I hate them all. I try to celebrate for my kids' sake, but I don't think that there is a single one besides Halloween where it's not just wrapped in some kind of like, you know, just sorrow for me. Just every birthday and every holiday really, except for really Halloween, because that was one that, like, I don't know. Nobody can really ruin Halloween, I don't think. But I still like Halloween. But the rest of them are like, you know, this last Christmas, I was like, I've had enough trauma reading or writing the book and then reading it out loud. I was like, I just can't do it. Like, I'll give you guys $100 each to buy your own presents and leave me the fuck alone, because I'm not doing a tree and I'm not doing any of that. I'm sorry.
But what is that like for Jeff? Because from what you said, he had the exact opposite. He had like such the normal, such the traditional, you know, wasn't allowed to even watch, you know, modern television as a child. So, and that was part of what we were talking about the other night on the other show, was about So we have these childhood traumas, we have these feelings about holidays and birthdays and big events, and then you go ahead and get married or introduce other people into your life who look at you like you're some kind of freak because you don't have warm fuzzy feelings about these big days.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you kind of
Yeah.
you shift into being someone else for the benefit of your spouse or your kids. So how is
I
that?
didn't do that part. I should have tried. I should have tried to shift into being somebody else, but I've just ruined every single one of their holidays instead.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Not
we
really.
can go that.
Well, they at least get money to go get their own presents, and they get what they want. So
We did actually, like every once in a while, because my kids are more nostalgic than I am, and one of them will ask, like my 21-year-old, like when he was like 8, we moved to Hawaii like right before Christmas, so I was like, we're not doing anything, sorry. And he's like, please just go get us one present each. And so I took them, I let them each pick out a present, and they unwrapped them. I didn't wrap them. I'm not gonna wrap them. They picked them out. They know what's in there. So then later that night, they like played with their toys. But then when everybody went to bed, my 21-year-old, who was 8 at the time, he repackaged everything. And there was this topiary tree in the other room that he like dragged in, and he put their presents back under the tree. And then I felt bad because I'm like, oh no, this is like, it's important to them. So, we did that. And then we went to the beach the next day and celebrated Hawaiian style. And somebody brought snow off the mountain, and we made a snowman on the beach in Hawaii. So like
aw, that's
things,
cool.
things are,
Aw.
things happen. And every year since, and I've tried to do something, but it's just really hard for me. And I don't think they understand the trauma. I don't want them to understand the trauma around it. But like I'll set up a
Right.
Christmas tree and I can find it pretty and everything. But yeah, I don't want presents. I don't like when other people buy me presents. I don't like being put on the spot. I don't like being forced to celebrate. Just all those things where you're going to go into a trauma response. So I just don't want
Yeah.
anybody looking at me while I do it. I can do it fine when no one knows what's going on, but I don't want anyone to know. But then like one year we made a tree out of garbage on our dining room
That's
table.
cool.
And
Oh, I love it.
That's
and
cool.
this year they were like, can we at least please have a bunch of sugar and some hot chocolate and watch a movie? So we did that. So I try to do whatever. Like if there's something that's really important to them and they really like, then I try to do it. But we don't have like a lot of the traditions because I think your sense of time gets screwed up too when you have trauma. Like you're just still always a little bit in survival mode where you can't get into the, oh, it's autumn, I'm gonna take my pumpkin sculptures out of the fucking garage or whatever and put them in my house. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to survive the day. There's not gonna be any pumpkins on my table. Like I'm just trying to get to night to do. There's always family drama around holidays. I think it just brings out the
I
worst in
imagine.
everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like them either.
I don't mind celebrating.
I
There
don't
was
do well.
one, like a few years where we were all broke, all of us kids. So we decided that we were gonna celebrate when everything went on sale. So like January 3rd, and we did that, and we all got good presents, and like everybody was super happy, and like the pressure was off, and I'm like, that's the best decision we've ever made. So for a few years we did that, and I liked that. That didn't bother me. But it's like, yeah, you're right. It is traumatic again and again and again every time.
But you
And
start
yeah,
your own
birthdays.
traditions.
The what?
But you start your own traditions.
Yeah, but I think one of my traditions, unfortunately, is to have no traditions.
I think that's what you kind of have to do when you go through a lot of crazy family dynamics.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard too for people that didn't have those kind of family blowups and all that stuff happen. They don't understand, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for them to really comprehend what it's like to be like, I can't have the normal thing and just need to blow it all up,
Yeah.
And that was something I had to learn for myself, and I kind of blew up all the family traditions, and I don't do any of that. And people are like, what do you mean, and I'm like, I can't, it's not something I can do either. So I'm right there with you. It's a difficult thing. I don't like holidays, I don't like birthdays. I do the best that I can for the kids and just try to get through it. It's a difficult thing. It really hard. Yeah, for sure.
I have a question. You said you don't like all of the attention being on you, and it sort of makes you uncomfortable. How are you handling all of these interviews, all the media, all the press, all the attention that you have to get in order to tell everyone about your book? How's that going?
Well, fortunately, I decided to come to LA with my 4 younger kids by myself with no help. And so I don't have time to think about what is happening, which is really, really good for me. I think it's good for me to just be way too busy to like, because
Yeah.
if I was here alone and any of this was happening, I would run it over and over in my head, and
Yeah.
I'd get myself all worked up. I had a meeting today and it was an important one to me. And I had to nurse him and jump in the car, and I was running late, and then I missed the exit on the freeway. In the book it talks about how bad I am at directions and navigating city streets. Today was no exception. So I passed the exit and I'm turning around and I get there, and like I have a big Ford F-250, like no, it's a long story, like a farm truck out here, and I'm going to this like fancy meeting in this private club or whatever. I had to call ahead and be like, can you valet a giant truck? And by the time I got there and got out, the person I was meeting was standing right there, and I was just like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Whereas if my life was calm and everything was fine, I think I might have panicked and not made it, and like had just a full blown
Yeah.
panic attack, because there was a minute in the car where that kind of started happening when I realized I forgot my CBD oil, and that I was gonna like not have that like kind of crutch in my purse to like, because that's one of my things that like really helps me, just a basic one with no THC though, but it really helps me just with anxiety, and I forgot it in the baby bag. And I started to think about that, but I was like, parking. So I think that part of this is, it's good that I'm just completely overwhelmed. And
So Kat brought up the fact that, obviously now you need the attention of the media and everything. And so what is that like? So, and one of the best parts of the book is like when the family finally, after Tom is out of the picture, you guys all really reconnect or connect for the first time as a family.
Yeah.
One of the favorite things you guys love to do is prank the paparazzi. Like
Yeah, well,
misdirection. Like
what better prank is it than to write a book talking
Right.
shit about the press and have the press want to talk to you
Thank you. That's what
about
I was.
it? Because that part
Mhm.
I'm having fun with. The other day I
Good.
had to do some news channel where everybody was real cute and put together, and I had just woken up and I had had a bad night the night before, and I woke up and I was just in a mood, is a nice way to say it. And they were trying to lead me to get me to say, like, a lot of people want to know, how did you ever forgive your mom? They don't ever ask me how I forgave my dad.
Right.
Which, right away they asked me that, and I'm like, fuck you. I locked my eyes on you. I'm like, so she asked me that, and I was like, telling her I didn't feel like I ever had to forgive my parents. And, well, who'd you need to forgive? And I'm like, the world and the press.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, I can. And I'm like, and myself and everything else. Like, but like, it's very like, I'm enjoying that part of like having the press. Like People Magazine did a segment, and like in the book, maybe I changed the name of the magazine or whatever, but I wrote a thing about how like People Magazine had published this like incorrect, salacious headline or whatever, and how it affected me in my life.
So that moment in the book where I had this huge aha, I didn't see that coming, it was when you were at one of the facilities and you kept begging the staff to tell you, like, what's really wrong with me? Why am I here? Like, what is the deal? And I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like gripping my steering wheel going, why is she here? Like,
what is
okay,
it? Yeah.
Like, what did you say? You said, I wrote this down, that you were just, you were a mouthy.
I know.
She's got Cat. What is it? What did she say she was?
Holding $1 million insurance policy.
Yes, but you said you were a mouthy fat little bitch, but that wasn't a reason to be like, that was how you described yourself. But yeah, so like,
accurate.
what did that feel like when you you connected the dots there, and they said, Yeah, really, the only reason you're here is you've got great insurance.
It's got to be a hard pill to swallow.
You're a meal
It
ticket.
was a really hard pill to swallow. I think mostly because I was 14 and I wasn't at that time ready to admit that every adult on the planet didn't have some sort of bene- like beneficial or loving intent for me. Like you kind of have that like, oh, everybody loves kids
Mhm.
and I can trust all adults, and it was the first time that I was like, holy shit.
Surprise.
Surprise, you're like and I thought up until then that I think I sort of thought that it was just a mistake that I was there, a misunderstanding or a mistake, and just that they didn't know what to do with me or have anywhere better to put me. And it was just kind of like for lack of a better idea sort of thing. But I was starting to think there has to be something more, because
Right.
there's no way you can keep somebody in a place like that. You're not, like, it was a 6-week program in general. And I was there already at this point, like 8 or 9 months. And when I tried to get a hold of my chart is what happened, because I wanted to see what they're writing in there about me. Every time anybody came around me, they're scribbling in this chart. And I was like, what are they writing? Like, what are they going to like write what I'm wearing? Or, there's not even anything interesting to say about me. Like, what's in that fucking chart? And I wanted to see it, and I tried to get it, and the nurse blocked me, and I got all mad, and I went outside. And there was a staff member out there that was a recovering addict. He wasn't like a classically trained therapist. He didn't have a PhD or anything. And I said, I want my chart. I want to look in it. I want to see if I'm crazy. What are they calling me? What label are they giving me? What does it say? And am I crazy? And he said, you're not crazy. You have the best mental health insurance I've ever seen. You're worth $1 million a year. And I was 14, and I was just like, that meme where that blonde lady's just kind of looking and the numbers are running in her head, like Matrix style, kind of where she's just trying to figure something out and do the math. So I'm sure for a minute that I was like trying to do the math, because I couldn't fathom that kind of stuff actually happened. Like, I was like in America, and I was a young white kid, and like, I just hadn't been exposed to any of that kind of like the system or any of that yet. And or I
Human
guess I had, just
currency.
didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't realize you were the human currency. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that.
and then I was like, oh my god, I'm like, I felt dirty all of a sudden. I felt like I'd been trafficked or something. And and going back and looking at it, there is an element for those kids that do, and adults too. Anybody who's being used to make money, be it off their mental health, their physical health, or whatever. Um, there is an element of that. Like when you're commodified as a human being, that's not okay in any way. Like it's just not okay. And I get all fired up about that, so I'll save it. But once he told me that, I ran away, and I was like, I'm not going to make these people any more money. But then I came back later because I ran out of my own money and didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, your little like detours each time
Oh
you
my
ran away
gosh.
were
You're
like
amazing.
epic. Epic. Each one. It's like I'm like, oh, where are we going this time? What are we going?
Yeah.
Where are we going? Where's our little trip? Like, I don't know. Like, I really kind of felt like I was there with you on this little adventure. Like, where are we going? What's gonna happen? Oh dear God. It was scary. And then I can't remember now where are we in the timeline of all this, but at one point you were in New York, and I think you were in a coffee shop or something, or you were in some kind of store, and there was a homeless man outside, and
Oh
you went to go
wow.
give him your food. The and it ended up being like you being the good person that you are. Like again, we're seeing
Mhm.
this is a recurring theme throughout this book, that you have this caring heart. You see this homeless man outside, you go to give him your food, and it's a
And
damn
it's a
paparazzi.
paparazzi.
Whips out the camera and tricks you.
Yeah.
And like this was
That was,
something like right, and you said I think that photo, that's the one that has the photo that people can like still find today, right? That's
yeah,
it's
you
you
can
and
find
Jake
that
or
one
whatever.
it's on Getty Images or whatever. It's my mom trying to flag down a taxi, and I'm just standing there with like my bleach blonde hair and being a good 30 pounds overweight at like, I think I was like maybe 13, 12 during that. I was 12.
Oh, so this is
So
younger before all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was before all that. It was like right before all of that. But that was like the beginning of it. But yeah, that was like that was another eye opener right there. It was just like, oh my
Mhm.
what just happened? I was like, that's a really nice camera for a homeless person. You could trade that in and get
Like it
some
didn't even,
snacks.
You
like,
could have
oh
traded
wow.
that for a lot of stuff.
Which one of these things is not like the other?
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
really weird. And like to think that somebody would do that to a kid too, because that was really like I don't know. It was weird because I was trying to give him the food and he stood up and opened his coat to me and took his camera out. And I know he's going after my mom, but I don't know. If I was him, I probably would have just taken the food and waited a couple of minutes and then
Right.
started taking pictures
Right.
or
Because how do you
asked,
do that
like,
to a
is it okay?
kid?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
There
a
was a
kid's
lot of
being
stuff that
sweet.
people,
Yeah.
I think, there's a few celebrities recently that have had some laws passed, where like, what's it, Dax Shepard and Kristen,
Yeah.
Stuart, maybe is that her name?
no,
No, no,
No.
I
God,
don't
no.
follow. I don't
Bell,
follow
Bell, Bell.
the Bell. Yes,
Felt.
Felt,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a few other celebrities that were in on it too, but they had some laws changed, I think 10 or 15 years ago, to protect kids. So the press isn't allowed to hound kids for anything, a job that their parent does, which would have been a blessing then too, because,
Mhm.
they
Right.
used to shove us over and step over us. And, it was just like no
No
grace or
boundaries.
mercy or I don't even know, respect. It was
It's
insane.
it's amazing to me though. Every in each like the recurring theme in the book through all these traumas and things that happened, that you still keep talking about how much you love, that you're looking at the best in everybody and the people that you love in your life. Like that comes through so clearly in
Yeah.
the book. It really does. Like your love for people, your love for life, you're wanting to be
Yeah.
seen, you're wanting to connect with people and not
Yeah, it's
believe the
gross.
worst in them. Like,
It's not
no,
gross. I think it's
it's because
amazing.
I see myself in that. Like I'm I'm guilty of that, but no, it's amazing for everything that you know, you've lived through and experienced, and that you're still seeing and finding the good in people.
Well, I think I've been through so much. I have, but it's all been like weird kind of like polar opposite realities. So like when I grew up, we grew up really poor and we were the poor ones on the street and we were also the trashy ones on the street and the ones who didn't go to church and like and then all of a sudden we're like these ones that are in Hollywood and everybody wishes that that was their they wish they had that Hollywood princess story and then all of a sudden I'm gone to reap all the benefits. I'm locked up so I didn't get so it just kept going like from one extreme to another in a way that was so strange, but at the same time like I I think that because of that, because the situation was always so crazy, it really left the human connection part like that was the only uh thoroughfare like the only thorough line. It was like the only part of my
Real thing.
experience as a human being so far that has made any sense. Like everything else is so ridiculous, but then you meet somebody, you connect with them and you're like, "Oh, this is important. This is important.
Yeah.
This connection's important." And my spiritual beliefs have grown to be where that's like that's it. That's all that matters is that love that we all have for each other that we work so hard to like destroy and get away from and to disprove and to make smaller and when left to our own devices and when we're not in like that trauma response or don't have something to prove or we're not identifying so deeply with our earth personalities, I mean there's nothing there but that connection and that love. And I think part of it's having kids too where the first couple years they can't talk
Mhm.
and it's all that
Yeah.
that it's all about that connection like and even glances on the street you'll see somebody make eye contact and it'll be more of a connection than you've made with people that have been in your life for a long time. So there's
It's
just
true.
something else going on here and like that's what I'm interested in. I don't
Mhm.
give a shit about the suffering or any of that my own. I'm saying I don't
Mhm.
like look at it like that anymore. I'm just like, wow, what an interesting perspective I've had that has really like washed away all the illusions of what this experience is and left me with nothing but my desire to continue to connect to people and love people. And I still love them, even the people who like, I still love Tom Arnold, I still love him. And I don't know if that's Stockholm syndrome or like if I really do, but I do. Like I have love for him, and everybody in my path I have some kind of love for it. And you have like you just have that like appreciation for, even if it's just negative shit that they brought in, that's all transformative in a way, you know. So
I
I
think
think
that
like,
just really goes to say who you are as a person, you know, like what all of these experiences that you've had in your life and what you've gone through, it really reflects as to who you've become as a woman, as a mother, and who you've grown into as a person. That you can sit here and say that if somebody reads the book, and they can come to their conclusions, you know, as to what role his, you know, in all that was, that you can sit here and say that you have love for him still. You know, I think that's an
yeah,
amazing thing. Um,
Also, when you were
and
saying
props to
how
you.
your experiences have led you to be able to kind of see through all the BS all over the world. I thought it was interesting when you're introduced to Scientology that you're like, oh no, I can see right through you. I see
yeah,
through you. I see through you. I see through you. I know what that is. I know what that is. But you know what? Since I have a free pass, I'll check it out just to amuse myself.
yeah, that was
I
morbid
thought
curiosity,
that
that
was
one.
fascinating.
I know. I would do this. I'm
Fascinating.
not gonna lie. I would be just like, I'm a nosy, just kind of a person,
Yeah,
anyways.
it was fully nosy.
Like I'm always kind of like totally like, if there's a car accident, I'm like, oh, what happened? Decapitation? Okay, you know, I'm just, well, that's, but you, like, one of my favorite stories too, and it was you did a fake journal to throw them
Yes.
off with all
Oh
these
my
crazy
Yes.
things
gosh.
that you were
Yes.
doing in
And
there,
and
which
in
was the
the end,
riot. And I'm like, and in the end, you were like, haha,
Sorry,
just
it cut
kidding.
out. I had a fake journal because I knew my mom was like snooping around my business, and she had been doing that to my sister. My sister had recently gotten sent away. So it was like one of my bratty, like little act of defiance thing was to get a journal and write all these fake entries. And then, like, at the end of it, I was like, how'd you enjoy that, mom? Or I said something bratty like that. And the stories were awful. I mean, they were just really awful. Like everything that you'd be terrified to read about your 12-year-old, 13-year-old doing.
And then at
dating
one
men for
point,
money.
you come back, you sneak your boyfriend in,
Mhm.
you get sent
Sure
away
did.
again. You come back for a weekend. Jake's got his girlfriend practically living at his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up at like a survival wilderness camp, which, by the way, after I'm going to need the name and phone number for, because I'm going to send my kid there. And then you graduate and you're free.
Yes. I got sent to like 9 places in there, but yes, eventually that did happen.
Wow.
And then you're 18. You have surgery,
Untouchable.
and you get
So,
this
Um,
apartment. And what happened? Sorry, Kelko.
oh no,
um,
go ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, was there? We're all too polite. No, you. No, you. But because during those years when the show was really taking off and the rest of the family was, I don't want to say stereotypical Hollywood, but when that all was happening, you weren't living any part of that life. Was there any part of your life that was, I don't want to say reaping the benefits or the perceived benefits of having, the rags to riches kind of story? Because it didn't sound like any of that ever happened. No,
no,
no.
no, I never felt like that. I was too fat to go shopping for cute clothes. They didn't have them back then. They just had Lane Giant or Lane Bryant. Oops. I always, but like, I think that would have been maybe the only benefit is cute clothes. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have that benefit. No, I don't think, I never felt like I reaped any benefit from it, which is probably why I had a negative experience of it. I mean, like, the money my mom made was what was keeping me in those places at that point. When I got out and I was an adult, I turned 18 in Venice in Italy and I was out on the
Mhm.
balcony drinking a bottle of wine by myself. And we wouldn't have been able to travel like that as the earlier life Pentland.
Oh, that
So
was a great story. Chocolate.
yeah.
Chocolate.
Yeah, my mom was like,
That was a
do you
cute,
want to
touching little thing.
die?
Yeah.
That one I wish you could get like even better visual. Do you want to die? I wish I could do it justice how she talked to that guy. Because it was like the whole world
Yeah.
stopped for like the 1 second where I was like, there was just no air on the planet for 1 second. Because I was like, she will murder you. Like I was just watching the interaction from outside of it. And it was like it was a little bit of black magic, maybe. It was amazing.
But
Funny.
that whole trip, that wasn't just to celebrate your birthday though, wasn't it? To like escape from the world because
Yeah.
the like it was hot in the kitchen. Like what was going on there?
Yeah, my mom and Tom decided to finally get divorced, and like the press, like they were all over us. Like I had just gotten home and I was already being followed, and we couldn't leave our house. Like we'd leave my mom down in the back of the car, and she had a limo that she owned at that point because she was renting one every day for so many years. She just got one, and we would drive the limo out so they would think that that was her, and they would go chase the limo around town, and then we would hide her in the back of one of the employees' small, Honda Civics or whatever, and we would go do something. We would go eat or something like that, or just go to the Taco drive-through or something real, that we couldn't do when they were around us all the time. So it got really, really bad because that divorce was so public, and back then there wasn't like we were like the only people. A couple families maybe were going through this, like OJ, because he murdered some people, but
Right.
Right.
like it was him and us, and like maybe one other person that was on every news station every night, like Current Affair, all of them every night was like
Yeah.
covering some aspect of something, and we couldn't do anything without it being turned into like a full-blown story. It was ridiculous. And my mom was like, I've got to get out of here. I got to get out of here and get out of the circus and, away from Tom. And um, he followed her to Sardinia, I think.
Wow.
Um, and then she just freaked out even worse and was like, I got to go somewhere where no one knows where I am. So like us kids didn't even know where she was. We just got on an airplane and landed, and her bodyguard came to pick us up, like, and take us out or a car came and got us or something and took us out into the country. And it was crazy then too. So no, that didn't even like fully feel like
A
a
celebration of
benefit.
your birthday. Wasn't that the same trip where she wound up flashing the boat of people? Come to find out.
See, that
And then-
felt like a benefit.
Yes.
That
And
kind
then
of stuff
they
was,
ended up all being
Being an
Americans.
American tourist. Thanks, Roseanne.
they loved it. I know, and we just sat there because we were already sitting down and had ordered food, and we were like, "Fuck it, let's just eat. Put your head down, let's eat." But yeah, that was. I mean, those kind of things to me actually were the benefit, like being able to be playful in a way you couldn't be playful if you were just somebody off the street. You get locked up, like doing some of the stuff we did, like that. Just pranks and pranking the paparazzi and stuff like that. That always felt like I don't know, a benefit, I guess. Sadly,
The
dropping water
reward
balloons on
for
people's heads.
the reward for time served or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, a little bit more like we get away with stuff too. Like, if you drop water balloons on someone's head and like, the police would come yell at you, maybe ticket you or something. But like, we knew we could get away with little things like that other people couldn't. So that part was fun. But fun in like an ironic sort of fun. But
Right.
yeah, I never really felt a benefit. And then when I lived in LA and was, I'd say like 18 to 23, I knew I wanted to have kids like early. And I was a nanny. My brother was born when I was 19. I was his nanny. Then I started nannying for a family at Temple that had triplets. And then
Oh yeah.
when I was their nanny, I got pregnant with my son. So like after that, it was just all about like, okay, let's go get on this breeder plan and get this done. And then it was just having kids and having a fairly normal life. We had a really normal life, and for them until my oldest was about 8. So when I was pregnant with my 12-year-old and we moved to Hawaii, and that was normal too. I mean, it was just, we did a lot of farming stuff, raised animals, and I mean, normal for people who aren't city
Girl,
dwellers.
okay, wait. You moved to Hawaii, and in 8 days you were homeless.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
after that,
That was crazy.
Can we,
somebody told me, someone there was like, don't move here unless you want all your karma to boil to the surface. And I was like, what? Me, karma? No. And it was 8 days. And then I was like, somebody's like, this island will test you and see if you're worthy of living here. And I was like, that's even, I'm a spiritual person, but fuck you. And then it was 8 days and I was like, I want to go home, but my house was on the market and like our stuff was already, I don't know, it was crazy. So yeah, we did. I mean, it was struggles the whole time. I think when I say a normal family, what I mean is struggling,
No, yeah.
constant
gotcha.
struggling, lots of surprises.
When you do your mini series, you have to come back on and tell us
Okay.
where we can find it.
Okay.
Because your 3 biggest fans are right here.
Yes.
You're sweet. Thank
No.
you.
And it was so funny because when the book was over, and I was like, I'm gonna miss Jenny's voice in my head every day because I just really, you have a great reading voice. I mean, you're a
Thanks.
gifted writer, but I really enjoyed the cadence, and I'm thankful that I was able to experience the book with you reading it.
No, thank
So
you. That's really
it was
sweet.
it was very cool.